Hi guys, welcome back to Chess the Matthew. So on this video, we will tackle about the game between Alireza Firouzja and Liren on the SUPERBET Classic. And their opening battlefield goes with the moves b4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5, the Roy Lopez opening. And here the black plays the move knight f6, attacking this undefended pawn. The white here defend with d3, and after bishop c5, a developing move, and preparing for a kingside castling. For example, after c3 for Alireza and kingside casting for Liren. And here the white do the same after kingside casting, and Liren here play d5 to attack now the center, and the white defend with knight b to d2, and after d takes e4, d takes e4, and here Liren here offer a pawn after a5, in which Alireza Firouzja here declined that offer and try to disrespect the idea of the world champion after queen to c2. Because for example, if the white here capture the knight on c6, and after b takes c6, knight takes e5, rook a8, knight b3 attacking the bishop, and after queen trade and bishop b6, the white here wins a pawn after knight takes c6, bishop b7, rook cd4, and after b takes e4 and bishop g5, we shall see on this position now that the white here wins a pawn for a cost of bishop pair on this position. So knowing that idea, Alireza here declined that offer and just played the move queen to c2, and after queen e7, defending the e5 pawn, a4, knight b8, h3, rook to d8, and here again Alireza here was so disrespectful in the opening principles that you should not move your pieces twice, in which Alireza here played the move bishop to e2, in which he actually moved his bishop twice on this position by playing from bishop b5 and again retreating it to e2 square. And again on this position, after rook to d8, the white here can actually play rook to e1 and try to connect his rooks after knight b to d7, and after knight f1, knight f8, and bishop to e3. And we shall see this position that the white here is doing fine with connected rooks in this position. So after bishop to e2, in which Alireza here just try to disrespect the world champion, and after the move knight b to d7, rook to e1, knight f8, knight b3 attacking the bishop retreats. And again Alireza Firouzja here has an idea after knight f to d2 and tries to win the double bishop after, for example, Liren here play the move bishop e6, knight c to e4, because we shall see in this position now that the bishop here cannot retreat on a7 square because he will lose his pawn on a5, and the world champion here was forced to capture the knight and giving up his double bishop. And after bishop takes c4, we shall see on this position now that the white here has a pair of bishop and a slight advantage on this position. So after the move knight to e6, trying to control the center, g3 to stop any knight f4, h5, trying to have an attack on the king side, king g2 just defending, h4, and queen to e2. And here Liren here play a committal move after g6, in which it actually weakens his own king side on this position. After queen to e2, here on this position, the black should play here rook to d7 and try to have large scale of control on the d file. Because for example, after knight to d2, h takes g3, f takes g3, and knight to c5, and after g4 for white, here comes now the rook a to d8 with a full control on the d file. And even though the white here will try to penetrate the black's position here on the f file by pressurizing the f7 pawn, but still the white here can defend here with his developed piece on the board. So going back after g6, Alireza Firouzja here try now to attack the king side after knight to d2, knight c5, knight f3, rerouting his knight to f3 to have control and attack on the king side of black. And after, for example, h takes g3, f takes g3, we shall see on this position now that the black here can win a pawn on the e4. But for example, after knight takes e4, there is just a simple knight g5 for Alireza. Although there is a strong move here that actually tries to penetrate the black's position after bishop h6 and also connecting these two rooks. And even though the black here will play the move rook to d7, for example, and after h4 and rook a to d8, but the white here can still just wait and have an equal position on the board after queen to c2. So after knight to g5, here comes now the accurate defense for black after knight to d6, trying to defend his f7 pawn against these attackers of white. And let's say for example after bishop to a2 and rook to a8, in which the position here was evaluated as an equal. Although after bishop to a2, in which the black here can play the move e4 to have an initiative. After, for example, bishop f4, knight h5, and queen to g4. And after, for example, king g7, h4, and a3, we shall see in this position now that the extra pawn on g3 will decide the game for black. So going back after a slight inaccuracy of black by playing rook a8, the white here played the move h4 trying to start an attack on the king's head, and after king g7, rook f1, rook a to d8, bishop to d2, trying to connect his rooks on this position, and after for example the move e4, bishop f4, e3, and after rook a to d1. And again, the world champion here blundered with the move knight f to e4, a wrong knight post on e4, in which the black here should play another knight here by playing knight d to e4. Because for example, even though the white here can capture that pawn, but there's just simple rook takes d1, rook takes d1, knight f2 attacking the rook, and after rook f1, queen to e4 giving a check, and after queen to e3 and e2 for black, and we shall see on this position now that this e2 pawn will become a giant in just one move after he reached the e1 square. So going back after knight f to e4, Alireza Firouzja here start now his disrespectful attack after bishop takes d6, because after knight takes d6, here comes now the bishop takes f7 that forced the black here to surrender his queen. After knight takes f7, rook takes f7 that gives a fork to the black's queen and king, and after queen takes f7 and knight takes f7, here comes the rook takes d1, and after queen takes d1, king takes f7, and we shall see on this position now that the material here is still balanced with bishop and rook against the queen and with a pass pawn, but still on this position it needs a precise move here to draw the game. And after for example queen to e2 to stop the pass pawn of black, and here the world champion actually commit a huge blunder after playing king to e7, in which he should play here to play the move king to g7 to have a fortress after the move king f1, bishop to c6, trying to reroute his bishop on d6, because after for example king to e1 and after the move rook e5, g4, bishop d6, h5 and b6, and we shall see on this position now that the black here successfully regroup his pieces and create a strong fortress in which the black king here cannot be disturbed by the attack of queen of white. So going back for example after the move king g7, king f1, bishop c5, if the black here again commit a mistake after rook f8, and here the white here will stop the black here to create a fortress after king to e1, because after rook f2 there's just a simple queen to b5 defending his b2 pawn, and after rook f7, queen e5 check, rook f6, b4, a takes b4 and c takes b4, and we shall see on this position now that The white here successfully stopped the black bishop to move on c5 and play bishop to d6 to create a fortress for the black's perspective. So going back after king e7, a huge blunder for black. The white here exploits that mistake after the move king f1, because after rook f8, there's just simple king e1, and after f2, a4 trying to win a pawn again, and after queen f6 defending, but there's just simple queen to g5 check, and after king f7, queen d5 check again, and after queen f6, g4, rook takes b2, g5, king e7, queen e5 check, and after king d7, again the white here successfully stopped the white here to create a fortress after queen to g7, winning the pawn on g6, because after king d6, queen takes check, king e5, queen e8 check, and after rook to f4, but still there is just a simple g6, trying to promote his pawn to become a queen, and after rook to b1 check, but after the king here find his home after queen to e2, rook b2 check, king d3, rook to d2, and after queen to c4, in which the white here was actually safe against the check, and it is easy for white here to push some pawns to promote it into queen, even though for example after rook to g2, but after 52 moves with queen to f7 check, Liren here resigned because he cannot afford that these two pass pawn was actually slowly moving up and promote it into queen against the black king. So going back in the initial position after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Roy Lopez opening, and after a solid preparation of opening after knight f6, d3, bishop c5, c3, king castling, and d5, and after the move knight bd2, d takes e4, d takes e4, e5. Although the black here offers here a pawn, but the white here decline the offer and just play a solid chess with queen to c2, and after for example queen to e7, a4, knight b8, h3, rook d8, bishop to e2, again moving the white's bishop here twice, in which it actually violates some opening principle that you should not move your pieces twice in the opening. And after knight b7, rook to e1, knight f8, knight b3, bishop b6, knight fd2, bishop e6, knight c4, in which the white here successfully win the pair of bishop of black, and after bishop takes c4, knight e6, g3, h5, king g2, h4, and queen to e2. Again, the black here actually play g6 that puts his king position here vulnerable after weakening his dark square on the board. And after knight to d2, knight c5, knight f3, h takes, f takes, knight c2, e4, and knight g5. Even though the evaluation here actually favors black here on this position after knight to d6, but after bishop to a2 and rook a8, the evaluation on the board slowly back down to equality. And after for example h4, king g7, rook f1, rook a d8, bishop d2, e4, bishop f4, a3, rook a d1, knight to f4, that is actually a huge blunder that allows for white here to create an attack on the f7 after bishop takes d6, knight takes d6, and force the black here to surrender his queen after bishop f7, knight takes, rook takes, and queen takes f7, in which after knight takes f7, rook takes d1, queen takes d1, king takes f7, and queen to e2. Although after this position it actually evaluates as equal because the black here has a pass pawn, bishop, and rook against the white's queen, but by playing queen to e7, a disastrous move for black, that the black here should play the move king to g7 to have an equality against the white. And after a 52 moves, the black here cannot actually survive the game after queen f7 check and the black here resigned. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to subscribe.